Hey, everybody, how's it going out there? This is Laverne Fuller with the Fuller Effect, and I wanted to come on tonight to kind of talk to you guys about everything that's been going on within the past week or so. Um, Today is my birthday. I'm 54 years old today, and today I was sitting down and I was kind of thinking about a lot of different things and how things have changed or haven't changed within the last 40 years. So, because I told I'm 54 years old, then you know that 40 years ago today, I was a freshman in high school. And I often tell you guys about my background, but I was raised in Toledo, Ohio, and I'm the youngest of six kids. My father and his brothers were truckers. They were independently owned trucking company. Um, they did have the distinction of being the most prominent black businessmen in several states over the years. Um, my father was also a pastor, and he also did other things. They also had a sister to branch off in Flint, Michigan by the name of Minnie Martin, and she was very prominent in her own right as well. And I was thinking about school and high school to be exact. So when I grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood. I would say we were upper middle class at that time, and so everybody, most of the people in our neighborhood worked at the plants, GM, Chrysler, that sort of thing. And back then, those were pretty good salaries. Generally, the husband and wife worked there. Um, my father was a little bit different. When we moved to Ohio, I was 6 weeks old, moving from Memphis, Tennessee. As I said, I'm the youngest of six children. And when we moved to Ohio, my father got a job at GM. And my mom worked. She did not work at GM. She was mainly a home provider, and she worked off and on. Um, but my father and his brothers, they went from owning gas stations to delivering flowers to actually having the big rigs. And so when they first got their contracts with the big rigs, they got a big deal, a really big contract. And this contract at that time, this is like late 60s to early 70s. And this first load was to pay $10,000. At that time, my father and his brothers, they had a lot of contracts coming in like that. My father gave us 2-week notice from GM. And that particular check bounced. So when that check bounced, he promised my mother that he would never put the family in jeopardy, no matter what. So even though my father and his brothers had a trucking company that was pretty lucrative, he also was an employee of GM for 30 years. And I know people say that's crazy. They often used to tell jokes because there was one brother or sister walking through the factory making deals for the company while he also was working on the line. But see, back then, there was a type of integrity and also a thing of where I'm not going to ever put my family in jeopardy. I kind of gave you this background so that you will understand what I'm about to tell you. So growing up in my neighborhood, we were, like I said, upper middle class for black families, and we all grew up together. Everybody knew everybody. When it came time for me to go to high school, they changed the district lines. So now I was required to go to a school called Bowser, E.L. Bowser, which was at that time predominantly white. I want to say all white. And I remember going there. And what happened there at Bowser? There were the Bowser rebels. Mm, okay. The school song was Dixie. Oh, I wish I were in the land of cotton. Yeah. Our school mascot was a man dressed in Confederate attire on a horse, dragging with like a makeshift chain around the neck of a black man in gunny sack. Okay, I want to repeat that. This is in 1980. The school mascot was a man or person in a Confederate outfit riding on the horse down the football field with a makeshift chain around the neck of a black man in a gunny sack. So, of course, the new black people at school was like, no, we don't wish we were in the land of cotton. And no, we're not going to accept this. So we did a lot of petitioning, protesting, a little rioting broke out, more so the year before I got there than the year that I actually began to attend. 1979 was bigger than 1980. And so I remember being in class. I remember my first homeroom class was English. And that particular class, I was the only black in the class. And at that time, the emotions were really high because the white students felt like we were coming in and changing things the way it was. And they could not understand what our problems was. Everything was gravy. And why would we come in and create dissension? So I remember sitting in this class, and it was about 20 kids in the class. So the teacher went around and she asked every child, these people have come in, meaning black people, and they're changing our ways. What do you think? So she went to every child in the class, every white child in the class, and they talked about how much they did not like it and how much they didn't care for black people and how much they wish we'd go back where we came from. And then she came to me last. And she said, Laverne, what do you think? And I said what I thought, that we had every right not to want to be betrayed like that. I then later on wrote a poem about the ignorance of prejudice, and I gave it to her. And she went down to the counselors and gave her the note. But see, I didn't put a name on the poem. So my question to my counselor was, well, how does she know that I was talking about her? Unless she kind of felt that way. You know how they say how a hit dog will holler? Well, I never put her name on anything. I just said, this is how I felt. So I kind of wanted to give that background because I looked at what's been happening here in the last few weeks. And it breaks my heart to think that 40 years later, we're still fighting the same fight. We're still fighting the same fight where it's like somehow there's a belief or a thought that we're not trying to get along and want to be respected, but somehow we're trying to come in and take over. And we're not trying to take over. We just want to be respected in our space. We just want the same considerations that you would like to have. How would you feel if this is how you're betrayed and you want me to stand up and skin and grin and act like it's okay? It's not okay. And it just kind of it kind of bothered me that we're still doing that all these years later. It's kind of crazy, isn't it? And so I was thinking too about, I've heard a lot of people make a lot of assumptions about where are the various celebrities or well-known people. And I think that what we have to remember is that everyone has their own way of fighting or reacting. Everybody cannot be on the battlefield. Some can, some can't. And God is going to determine who he's raising up to be the next leader, not us, no matter what we think or no matter how we feel. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, also, we did have a lot of entertainers and things of that nature coming together. That used to be uh, March on Washington, African. Those used to be rallies in Washington. I remember my older sisters attending those rallies. And it was a big deal. You had Stevie Wonder and a lot of big name people attending that at the time. But see, they were trying to make a way for, just like the Jackson 5 said, you better make a way for the young folks. They were pushing and forging a way for the Black community that had not been had yet. It hadn't been had yet, period. So yes, they stood out and fought and marched and reminded ourselves that this is what we stand for. We also then at that time, I think I remember the first president that we lobbied for was McGovern, and we campaigned for McGovern, and we walked and we passed out flyers, and we learned about. What it's like to work in a campaign for a president. And so fast forward, say 32, 33 years, we now have a Black president. And we have allowed ourselves to believe that we've come so far that we can now be comfortable. Comfortable to the point where we can no longer relate, or we have a whole lot to lose. So we're very careful about how we speak and how we approach and how we move forward and what we have to say. You see, here's the thing. When you become prominent or find yourself in a position where people consider you and your family to be prominent, they now kind of look at you a little different than quote unquote the other Blacks. They sometimes give you carte blanche, like you're that special Black. They kind of feed you. They really don't think that you are the special Black, but they lead you to believe that to allow you to move differently. After the chaos back and forth in my high school about all the fighting over wanting to change the mascots and the names, we were not successful in changing the mascot, the name from the Rebels, but we were successful in being able to change the mascot. I remember talking to my parents and asking them to move me to the other high school, which is the high school that my sisters and older brothers had all gone to, and this was considered to be a more predominantly Black middle upper class high school. And so my parents petitioned to the Board of Education and asked that I be moved, and they denied me. And they didn't feel that I could function around predominantly Black people. And you had it on my father. My father was like, don't you know it's nothing but Black folks in our house every day, all day? She has to function around Black people. That's all she knows. But there's a different type of standard. The reason I'm saying this is because there are people that would allow themselves to believe that once they've moved on to another level, that they're not like other Black folks. They don't know what it's like to be hungry, or they've forgotten what it's like to go hungry, or they've not experienced things. They no longer go to the other side of town, or as we used to call it back in the day, the other side of the tracks. They don't mix and mingle with people under a certain socioeconomic grade at all. And they don't want to anymore. So we've watched it go on for a while. We've watched the rappers turn singers, turn actors, turn, now I've got enough money to put a president in office. Now I've been to the White House. Now I'm mingling with certain people. And even though I'm still a black man or black woman, I am in a different place and I can't really relate to where those people are anymore. We know who they are because they haven't come out and really spoken a whole lot. Some of them, I don't want to say them, because, and let me say, before this, they would be in the media saying certain things that kind of allowed them to side with anything other than the black community. Now, as long as they're giving money and on certain platforms, they have allowed themselves to believe that they were working in the black community's favor. But when they get in certain circles, they're the ones that chuckle at that side-eyed black joke. And Bob, you're crazy. Because they're talking about them, not me. They're talking about those other ones, like where I used to be, but I have dusted myself off. I have lifted myself by my bootstraps. I have struggled, and I'm no longer a part of that. Which is why this recent movement with George Floyd and the murder had to be led by some younger people. You had to have somebody that didn't have anything to lose. You see, you had young men that said, and women that said, they're killing us anyway. So I'd rather die on my feet fighting for what I stand for. And so it took those young people to stand up. You see, it's kind of synonymous to Martin Luther King. He was in a situation, they were in a situation where we've got nothing to lose because we've already lost so much. So we're going to fight. We're going to fight. And let's just be clear. There were a lot of black people that were not happy with Martin Luther King. There was one woman that even tried to stab him because they felt like he was a troublemaker. They were comfortable in their own worlds. They were comfortable in their own skin. And they really did not want to have that interrupted. They allowed themselves to believe that these young people were out of line, out of order, saying too much, going too hard. They allowed themselves in the back room too to say, Colin Kaepernick need to go ahead and just sit down and shut up. They heard you, okay? George Floyd wasn't by happenstance. That's who God sent to give his life for such a time as this. So we have to be careful of who we judge and why we judge people, because you don't know what another person's purpose is on this earth. They may not have done anything that we would have done, or they may have made some mistakes that we don't necessarily understand. But see, once you meet your purpose, you will no longer be on this earth. He was born to die on that streets with this man's knee in his neck, a modern day martyr. See, we think we can pick out who God is going to use and choose, and we can't. We don't know. That's why you always have to be careful who you're talking to and how you talk to people and judging people, because you don't know when you're entertaining angels among us. You don't know. You don't know who God set up for the next move. You see, it's kind of a perfect storm. We've seen it for years. We've seen so many tapes of police officers doing things they should not do, and nobody really say anything. We became whiny as, oh, here they go again. The police are picking on us. The police are picking on us. And let's face it, we've all done that at some point. It's like, it can't be that bad. They got to be making it up. Nobody's doing all that. Nobody's doing all that. And we've all had a situation that you just couldn't believe it until you saw it for yourself. So until they actually caught this man on tape holding his knee on the neck, not even caring about anything, so nonchalant, it's like, ooh, I'm just sitting here watching the time, aware that there was no longer breath underneath his body in the other body. He was aware. No one would have believed that other races was coming in and looting and tearing up society and blaming it on another group until it was caught on tape. And the fact is, if I'm a part of that, and I know that I don't do stuff like that, it's hard for me to believe that somebody does that. The Bible says, so shall a man thinketh, so is he. So shall a man thinketh, so is he. So if I don't think like that and I don't behave like that, it's hard for me to fathom that somebody is behaving in that manner. You can tell me all day long, and I'd be like, we've all done it. Man, I don't believe that. Ain't nobody acting like that. They ought to go sit down. Ain't nobody carrying on like that. That's got to be imagination. They have got to have exaggerated the point a little bit. Only when you see it for yourself, you go, wow, hey, that really happened. That so-and-so really did do that. And so I'm saying that to say, I'm not saying that we should not be upset, and I'm not saying that we should not have unrest, but I think that what we should try to do is catch on to the fact that some people didn't act. Now, let me be clear. There are some people that did not act just because they have a point of prejudice. But there's some people that did not act because they really couldn't get it. They couldn't get it. And to add insult to injury, then you have people like, what's her name? Candace Owens out there, a Black woman talking down the Black community. So when you've got somebody like that in the circle and she's the only thing they know about the Black community, and she acts like she's speaking for and representing the Black community and talking down our own, that kind of solidifies the thoughts that they had before. Oh, see, even Candace said that they do those things. Even Candace has justified how we think and feel. So she does not help the conversation. She actually hinders the conversation. I don't know what her background is. I don't know anything as to why she chooses to be vocal, in my opinion, negatively towards the Black community. I don't know if it's for sensationalism, if she wants to appear to be provocative and it pays her. I don't know if she had a bad experience. I have no idea. But I do know that we do it all the time. If we're wrong and we can find a group of folks that think like we think and come in and say the same stuff that we think, it allows us to continue to support our stance that this is what I think, this is what I feel, and we feel justified because somebody else thinks like we think or feels like we felt. And that is kind of what went on. So I think that now we're going to see a shifting. I think we're going to see a turning. I think that we're going to learn to understand each other better than we have understood people in the past. I think that now conversations will be had that never had been had before. I think that now people are getting to know we weren't asking you for anything except for to see that our kids are dying out there, not dying, being actually murdered and slain. And it did not help that Donald Trump helped to skew the narrative for people who are in his pocket or people that he communicates with every day. He's a spin doctor. He's good to spinning situations. But that's how he got rich. He's a spin doctor. He's good at doing that. So that did not help the narrative as well. It had to take what happened this week with George Floyd for people to see it for themselves. And here's the fact: there's some people that still won't see it. My father once told me a long time ago. I remember I had a conflict with some people, and he said, "Vern, what they determine they're going to do is going to depend upon what they love or hate more." Actually, it was my husband's family. He said, if they love him more than they hate you, this nonsense will stop. But if they hate you more than they love him, you better buckle your seatbelts because they're not going to stop. Because their agenda of disliking you is stronger than having peace. Okay? And that's what we have to understand when we're dealing with people. You have to know what their strongest emotion is. If they dislike our community more, there's nothing you're going to say to ever reach them. But if they dislike the discord more, they'll have an open ear and be able to come to the table. And here's the thing, too. To a lot of people, what their parents taught them is more true than the Bible. Okay? And because of that, it's going to take a lot to get people to think differently than what they were raised in thinking, especially if they have not had any exposure to different people. They don't really know what to think. They don't really know what to feel. All they know is what they have been taught. All they know is what people said. And if the only thing they ever see is negative stuff out there, they're fearful as well. They are so fearful they can't stand it because they really don't get it. So I think we all, both ways, have to have an open mind in order to bridge this gap. I also wanted to talk about people not being where we think they need to be. Everybody can't be on the battlefield fighting. Some people fight with their wallets. Some people fight behind the scenes. Everybody can't be on the battlefield. When I went to start viewing colleges, this was late 1982, early 1983. I went and I did, one of the colleges I visited was Wilberforce College in Ohio. And when we were there, they had speaking there was Kwame Ture. Some people know him as Stokely Carmichael. And if you know anything about Kwame Ture, his thing was, what we need to do is strap on a grenade and run in for the cause. And then you give your life for the cause. And then the people behind will be there to fight the cause. And so when I heard that he was there, I was excited. I ran, and me and my friends, we sat down front. At that point, I knew who Kwame Ture was. I knew he was a Black activist, but I did not know his philosophy. So when I'm sitting there, he's like, when we fight for this movement, we got to be diligent. You got to be willing to strap on the grenade and run in and pull the pin and give your life. Blow yourself up. And then we got to trust that our other brothers left behind will fight the fight. I was like, Scooby-Doo. So I got up and I went and sat way back by the door. Because I thought, if I see that Negro look like he reaching towards something, I'm out. But I am of the belief you can blow yourself up, but I'd rather be here telling you what I think. I'm not trying to die for the cause. I know somebody has to. But unless you make me tag, I am not it. Okay? I'm willing to stay behind. I'm willing to march. I'm willing to this. I'm willing to say what needs to be said. I'm willing to do, but I'm not willing to commit suicide. But here's the deal. The young men and women that marched this past week were willing to pull the pin. Some of the people that you saw, and then here's two. We're in COVID-19. You still have people with families. You're not free just to travel wherever you want, however you want. There's still a lot of restrictions. And just because you have a lot of money, people have other things to consider. Like if you have small children at home, we don't know what other people's health conditions are. If you have a compromised immune system, you can't be there because you're more susceptible to obtaining COVID-19. I think what I'm saying is, let's not worry so much about who wasn't there, because whoever was there is who God sent. Whoever was there is who God sent. If he didn't send you, it's because he didn't want you there. And if he did tell you to go and you did not go, you missed your next blessing. So, I am excited to see what's going to happen next. I'm not going to act like everything is going to change overnight. We know better than that. I'm hoping, and I'm praying, like so many other people have said, I'm hoping that we're planning to vote. I'm hoping that we understand and believe that our word means something. I am hoping that people understand that money talks and BS walks. When people feel like they're personally affected, like the NFL, if they don't have blacks, they don't have players. That came directly from Roger Goodell, which tells you that he's looking for self-preservation. He's not willing to give up the way he's living in his lifestyle for that. Let a couple bad apples go to jail, and I'll say, yeah, I'll go testify, long as my lifestyle stays the same. I think also sometimes we don't understand the power that we have. When you decide what you will and will not do, there are consequences either way. It may work, it may not go, but you got to vote your personal conscience every time. That's how you got to live your life. You got to live your life voting your personal conscience, because it's only you that has to live with you. You got to live with yourself, period, point blank. So always vote your personal conscience. Always, how they say, to thine own self be true. And always trust God. Know that if God sent you, he got you. And that goes to knowing God's word and knowing who he is and having enough of a relationship that you know that it's him talking to you and not you having some grand idea. Because let me tell you something. If God didn't send you, it ain't going to turn out good. Some of the people that are not there because God didn't send them. Okay, so I'm seeing somebody saying, right, level up. Are you there? If you're there, say hi. Because this is new to me. I'm getting used to people's talking back because I'm always used thinking I know that I'm not uploading, but my mind is always there like that. But anyway, so what I want you guys to do is to get excited about the next chapter. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen the next 40 years from now. Um, I think it's going to be an exciting thing. I think it's going to be a fun thing. I think it's going to be, we've turned a corner. Now, do you think I'm going to sit here and tell you that everybody's going to agree? No, they're not going to agree. Do I think, you think I'm going to sit here and tell you everybody's going to get along? No, they're not going to get along. But there is a changing of the guard. And in case you don't understand what I mean, and when I say changing of the guard, Al Sharpton is getting old. Jesse Jackson has dementia. Uh, some of our older Raptors, let's face the fact, Puffy them are almost 60 years old. They're not trying to leave their lap of luxury and comfort to come back down. They worked hard for that. And they're willing to see a couple of folks fall by the wayside to remain in their comfort zone. But we got some new young men out there that have that passion and fire, like Martin Luther King and Jesse Jackson in his young day, and Thurgood Marshall and Colin Powell, all those people who were hungry to make a new thing happen. That's what we got right now. And I'm excited to see what happens next. And I want us Black people to stop judging each other so harshly. The Bible said, as harshly as we judge, is as harshly as we shall be judged. And we'll pay for it. Now, I was one, I think I was one that always made it my business to try to walk with the right crowd, to always do, quote unquote, the right thing. Now, when I was much, much younger, I used to like to fight. And I only used to like to fight boys because girls didn't know how to fight. They used to swing, and I used to like to stick and move. But when I got about, say, 11 or 12 years old, I was no longer, I had no interest in that. But I was so much into doing the right thing. If you broke the rules, I didn't hang out with you. I didn't go anywhere with them. I was nerd. I remember that my friends and I, back then, it was Valley time. And the saying was, gag me with a spoon. So we thought that we were intellectual. So instead of saying, gag me with a spoon, we said, gag me with various kitchen utensils. Okay? We thought, it sounds ridiculous, but we thought we were cut above, okay? And because we spent so much time, yes, all these were Black kids. Okay, let me make that clear. But because we thought we were such a cut above, and because we thought that we really walked on the straight and narrow, we couldn't relate to a lot of kids who made mistakes or did the wrong things. And we spent a lot of time trying to stay away from them. So much so, till I had a brother. I have two brothers. I'm the youngest of six children, but I had my second brother, the baby brother. Went to the military. He served almost 14 years. He came back. I think he wound up on drugs, but he was an attorney. But I remember seeing him high one day, and it kind of scared me. So some things happened, and he wound up going to jail. I told y'all I'm transparent. I don't say these things because I'm proud of it. I say it because it's not a lie. And if I can help somebody not make a mistake that I made, then I've done my job. So my brother wound up in jail, and I don't even remember how long he was in there, but I remember getting a letter from him. And he was like, hey, baby girl, I know I've made a lot of mistakes and God has dealt with me. And I'm not who they say that I did what they said I did, but I'm not who they say that I am because I am clean, I'm sober. He said, but God has told me it's time for me to go on. I read the letter and I said, oh, that's that jailhouse jargon. Everybody in jail gets saved. I didn't respond. Put the letter away. And then one day I got a call saying, Bae is in the hospital and they don't think he's going to make it. Now, at that time I was in nursing school. I was on my final level. And I'm going to show you how God works. There was some crazy stuff going on and I didn't pass that level. And I'm going to tell you why I didn't pass that level. Because if you didn't pass a level, you had to wait and go back in. If I were in nursing school, I never would have gone. But because I was out, I couldn't afford to go. My husband had a good job. I didn't work if I didn't want to. But I went with the family. And we went there at the hospital. My brother was unconscious. He was in a chemically induced coma. He was chained to the bed because he was an inmate. And we sat around. And officer after officer came in. And they were like, we're just happy to meet y'all because your brother said something to help me to change my life. Your brother said things to help me get saved. Your brother told me things to help. Now, we don't know where God is going to use somebody. I will tell you today that God put him there because that's where his ministry was. But I didn't understand that, and it wasn't for me to understand. But the thing that I have to hold on to and live with for the rest of my days is that I never got a chance to sit and talk with my brother again. I never wrote him back and said, be encouraged. God loves you. Never. Because he never came out of consciousness. Came back to consciousness. He passed away. Now we can sit by the bed and holler and scream and cry and kumbaya. But see, when you get an opportunity to make it right, you could. And the crazy thing is, it's not like it was wrong. He'd never done anything directly to me. It's just that I spent so much time in my life trying to do things the right way and follow a path and be on such a right lane, such a do-gooder, such a right liver, that anybody who broke the rules, I steered clear of. I did. And what I can never do is take that back. But what I can do is tell you where I made a mistake and ask you not to do the same. Now, I'm telling you to always be mindful. What I did not do is consult God and ask him, what should I do? I ain't think anything of it. Now, I could put it back on age or anything like that. I wouldn't. It was simply that I had felt that I lived a certain way and I had a certain lifestyle, and anyone that was breaking the law and doing drugs and behaving in such a manner, I was not going to deal with. A family foe. I had a lifestyle, and that was that. I'm not proud of that. So, today, again, happy birthday to me. I'm 54 today, June 6th, 2020. And what I'll say to you is, stop judging each other so harshly again. Because the Bible said, as harshly as we judge, it's as harshly as we shall be judged. And always know That there but by the grace of God goes I. There but by the grace of God goes I. Well, you know how I do it. I love you guys with the love of the Lord, and there's absolutely, positively nothing you can do about it. I'm Laverne Fuller with the Fuller Effect, and I'm out.